Thank you very much, Gary. I think we're all realists in Governor Brown's office. I don't know about warmists or skeptics. Realists. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. You've already heard some detailed presentations from other people in the administration. You'll hear more later, and I'm going to be followed by Mary Nichols. What I would like to do is try to frame this in terms of Governor Brown's broader vision on climate, which animates all of what we're doing. And to do that, I'd like to quote him directly. And here's some of what he said. I have a continuing commitment to specific programs and policies that reduce California's dependence on foreign oil, ease rising costs, make buildings more efficient. New homes and new appliances must be efficient and affordable. We should maintain its leadership in biogas, wind, solar, and so forth. Visionary. Now, Governor Brown said that in 1981 in his energy plan then, and it was visionary then, and it's visionary now. Unfortunately, in between, we had 30 years of what President Obama called shock and trance on energy policies. Fortunately, we have a new administration. We have Joe Goffman in there and others, Gina McCarthy and others working to remedy that. But it just shows you the degree of challenge that we face. The governor has said more recently that our policies have been successful. And here's something he said. He was recently in China. Here's what he said about some of the policies in China. 30 years ago, people said your efficiency standards, your rules are going to stop growth. Well, we've multiplied our economy by 8-fold, and we're creating a better society. And he likes to talk about the example of refrigerator standards. California set the first refrigerator efficiency standards in the late 1970s, and industry said you were going to ban 3/4 of all freezers and refrigerators in California. Of course, we have many, many more models now with all kinds of gizmos and gadgets and ice devices, and we use 1/4 of the efficiency, and the price is 50% of what it was in real terms 35 years ago. To the governor, climate change is a central overriding issue and an issue that must be dealt with now. This is what he said in the State of the State address. Nothing poses a greater threat to California's long-term prosperity. He went to the National Governors Conference in February and said, just like our national debt, our debt of climate is unsustainable. He went and talked to a natural resources committee that consisted of 10 governors. They're all, almost without exception, conservative governors from energy-producing states. And he said, we've got to take action. And he won, at least Governor Beebe of Arkansas came out saying, we're with you, Jerry. We've got to move forward. So he's starting to chip away at the Citadel. I don't think I need to lecture this group about climate. I think it is very important, though, for all of us to keep driving home the message that climate change is here, that it's happening. It has real impacts right now in California and elsewhere. We've heard a lot that 2012 was the hottest year on record. It was the 3rd hottest year ever in California. We've already warmed 1.7 degrees over the past 100 years in California. And we do know that the fire season is 2/3 longer in the West than in California. Fires are more frequent, longer, of greater intensity than they were 2 decades ago. There are many other concrete examples of how climate change is happening. We in California are particularly vulnerable because of a variety of factors. We have a very long coastline. We rely on the snowpack for a great deal of our water supply. We have some of the worst air quality in the country, and hotter temperatures will lead to worse ozone. We have large forested areas vulnerable to forest fires. We have the Bay Delta that's at great risk from sea level rise and an atmospheric river storm. So we have real serious risks to deal with. For those of you who are interested in learning more, there The Energy Commission's published 3 climate assessments. The third one came out last summer. The third climate assessment's on the California Energy Commission's website, and it's an outstanding resource telling folks about what's happening in California, what the economic and environmental impacts will be in the future. Now, the governor also takes very seriously his role in educating the public about climate change. Actually, he's had at least one, maybe more conversation with Dr. Mueller about some of his findings. The governor really wants to engage, maybe not the most serious skeptic, but certainly folks who are uninformed or uninterested or undecided about climate change, and he wants to really take on some of the myths of the contrarians. And the Governor's Office of Planning and Research has a website that's devoted to rebutting some of the most commonly purveyed myths. I think it's really worth checking out, Just the Facts website. In addition, as part of Earth Hour 2013's challenge, the Office of Planning and Research decided to start a climate video series. We've called it Hot Facts and Cool Solutions. And they're posting videos from scientists, leaders, high school students about what climate change is and what some of the solutions might be. Just to give you a flavor of that, I'm going to play a little video from the director of OPR.
Hi, my name's Ken Alex. I'm the director of the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. We do a lot of work with land use and how the state develops, looking at things like what California will look like in the year 2050, how it will look with 50 million people. One of the things that we're thinking about quite a bit is how California will be impacted by climate change. Governor Jerry Brown has made that issue one of the most important parts of his time here as governor. How can California be prepared for the impacts that are already occurring and the things that are yet to come? We've asked a number of scientists to talk not just about the science that they do in looking at climate change, but to talk about why it's important to them, what are the things that we can do now and in the future to address it. So how do we talk to people about some of these issues when climate change affects different people in different ways? We've asked them to make some short videos. We're going to put them on our website. We hope you'll come back and look at them over time. We think you'll find them interesting. We certainly do, and we really appreciate all the people who've made videos. If you have ideas for more videos, if you have interesting topics or interesting people, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you think, and we're looking for your participation as well. Thank you very much.
You can get up and start answering to this. Of course, that's the beautiful thing about YouTube. Anyone can do a 2-minute video, be posted on the Office of Planning and Research's website, and become a celebrity. So our challenge to you is to come up with an interesting solution or idea, and we'll post it on the website, and we'll communicate it to hopefully thousands of Californians. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about giving a context for the strategies of what we're doing to deal with climate change. I think the good news is, while the problem's serious, California is leading the way, and we have a multi-pronged approach. I'm not going to spend detailed time talking about all of these. You've probably heard, if not, I'm happy to say it again. In 2011, greenhouse gas emissions in California went down by 5.8%, 22% in the power sector. So it's a success story. We have a strategy based on AB 32, our Global Warming Solution Act, that pulls us in the direction of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and it's a multi-pronged approach. Several fronts: renewable energy, energy efficiency, clean transportation, storage, demand response, combined heat and power. You've heard lots about AB 32, cap and trade. I don't need to talk about that. And sustainable land use policies. Let me just highlight a few things that we're really focused on. Energy efficiency, always the starting point for a clean energy economy. It is the fastest, most reliable form of generating energy, often the cheapest, and zero environmental impact. The standards that Governor Brown referenced on his trip to China, since 1980 in California, they've saved $74 billion in consumer costs. Per capita electricity consumption in California has stayed flat over the past 3 decades, while it's increased by 50% in the rest of the country. At the same time, our economy's grown 8-fold. The Energy Commission is moving into new areas, lighting technologies, and the whole world of consumer electronics. Just to give you some sense, they adopted a standard for battery chargers last year that will save enough electricity to power a city the size of Bakersfield, California, 350,000 people. We're looking at flat screen TVs and others. We're not alone in the West, by the way. The Northwest energy efficiency represents about 12% of energy generated in the Northwest. Instead of procuring energy from traditional sources, 12% comes from efficiency in the Northwest as compared to 1% nationally. And our colleague, Governor Kitzhaber in Oregon, recently proposed that Oregon would meet all new demand for electricity from efficiency and conservation between now and going forward. We have an aggressive renewable energy standard. It's 33% renewables by 2020. Just a couple of words about that. We originally had a 20% renewable energy standard that was adopted in 2002. 10 years ago, utility executives said, we can't do it, can't be done. The 20% can't be done. We're already at 20%. We're well on target to meet and exceed our 33% standard by 2020. And the wonderful news is we're doing this without any adverse impacts to the reliability of our electricity grid, and we're doing it at reasonable costs. The costs of renewables are going down steadily. They're only going to go down while fossil fuels will continue to go up. And our Public Utility Commission has estimated that in the next decade of electricity price increases, only 5%, 5 to 7% will be the result of renewables. Again, we think we have a real opportunity to partner with other states in the West. We already have Texas in the West has the most wind energy in the country. Washington, the most hydroelectric. 4 of the 5 states, if you include Oregon and California, in terms of renewable energy production, are in the West. We have potential to power the West and the rest of the country many times over. Rooftop solar in California has been expanding. We really have had a rooftop revolution. We have over 127,000 homes and businesses with solar with solar on their roofs, about 1,300 megawatts. And interestingly, the 3 main production home builders in California have all agreed, representing about 25% of new homes in California, have all agreed to make solar a standard feature on their homes because it's popular. It's popular to do that. Transportation, Mary Nichols is going to talk more about California's historic agreement, and Joe Goffman talked about it already, for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from cars. Those will both save consumers and also result in jobs in California. I want to just touch on one thing that Mary's also going to talk about. We have a mandate for producing zero-emission vehicles by 2025, 1.5 million cars on the road. That's what the state's, the Air Resources Board rules and the governor's executive order require. People say it's a great challenge. I noticed that one of the automakers yesterday said it's going to be more difficult than meeting our CAFE standards, but we're making progress. We've sold 25,000 electric vehicles in California in the past 2 years. That's 40% of the national market, and we're already on a higher growth curve for EVs than we were for hybrids at a comparable point in their development. Part of the vision for transportation is high-speed rail. We don't want to have to go to China or Spain to get on high-speed rail, as the governor just did. That will significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions from inner-city travel. Another key component is sustainable land use practices. In California, 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation, most of it people commuting to and from work and school. We need to reduce the amount of vehicle miles traveled, especially as California grows to a state of 50 million people, which will be in a couple of decades. We have a signature law known as SB 375. The short of it is it ties regional transportation funding to the development of sustainable land use practices that promote efficient development and limit sprawl in California. The verdict's still out, but it's an ambitious effort to try to contain that source of greenhouse gas emissions. I'll talk about 2 or 3 things very, very quickly. Energy storage. In order to get to our long-term climate goals, we know we will need more reliance on energy storage, which can help with intermittent renewables. They can help the integration of those renewables, help deal with power that's generated off-peak and store it for on-peak times. California passed a law in 2010 that was sponsored by Governor Brown that requires the Public Utilities Commission and local municipal utilities to develop targets for procuring storage, and that's going to be a real game changer, I believe. Combined heat and power, that's another old, long-standing technology by which you generate electricity and useful thermal energy from one energy source. It's the ultimate type of industrial efficiency. We're delighted that President Obama has called for he's issued a call for the development of combined heat and power nationally. We have an ambitious goal in California to develop 6,500 megawatts of new combined heat and power by 2030. And then demand response, not a very glamorous term, but it's really another type of clean energy generation, just like efficiency. It basically means reducing electricity use at certain peak times or times of great need. It's simple, but it's untapped in California, really. We're laggards in this area compared to the East Coast. We're working on that. Our Energy Commission is going to be developing a roadmap for how to greatly increase demand response in California, which is going to be particularly critical as more renewables come online. And for example, if the nuclear power plant at San Onofre doesn't come back online. So these are among the suite of exciting things that we're doing. All of this is necessary to tackle climate change. Let me close with a couple of final inspirational thoughts from Governor Brown. This is what he said in China last week. What's beautiful and exciting about climate change is no one group can solve it, not the United States, not California, not Japan, not China. We all have to do this. And we need to be bold, creative, and courageous. This is not the time for passivity. It's an enormous challenge. Great. Thank you very much.